What's up guys, Joe Mama here, and today we're going to be going over my team for the current VDL season. The current VDL season is the super low tier format, which is a fun spin on the popular low tier format that's become a staple within the drafting community. The building process was very challenging but also interesting. Many of the common staples of Pokemon draft were in high demand and low supply, being the steel and fairy types along with hazard removing Pokemon. And you'll see the impact of such limitations within my team structure, but without further ado, let's jump into it. My first pick of the draft at the number 5 drafting position was Flygon. Flygon brings a lot to the super low tier format, providing 2 key immunities, which are the ground and electric immunities. The ground immunity is important due to the otherwise spammability of moves like Earthquake, and the electric immunity is important to stop one of the most common forms of pivoting via Volt Switch. Outside of this, however, Flygon has great merit. Flygon can do almost any role you give it. It can be a potent sweeper of Dragon Dance sets and Throat Spray sets because of its deep move pool. It can run any of the choice items due to access to U-turn to pivot out, and it can run Stealth Rocks to support the team. Flygon also has access to priority for the few threats that can outspeed it with access to First Impression and Vacuum Wave. All of these combine with a great offensive dual stab and allow Flygon to function well as one of the main modes of offense within the team. For my second pick, I chose my first Terra Captain, Hisuian Decidueye. This mon is one of the best recipients of Terra in the whole format because this otherwise powerful Pokemon is hindered by one of the worst defensive type combinations in the game. Decidueye has respectable stats for the format, with only its speed being subpar. Also, despite its defensive shortcomings, stab fighting attacks hit many of the strongest Pokemon for heavy damage. This, combined with Decidueye's ability to hit Ghost-type Pokemon via Scrappy, makes for a powerful spam-heavy playstyle, further empowered by the potential Terra fighting. Speaking of Terra, Decidueye can function as a more support-heavy Pokemon with a defensive Terra type. For example, Decidueye has the option of playing a defensive hazard remover due to its access to the reliable healing move Roost and the highly coveted Defog. Decidueye also has decent utility options to support the team as well. It can get knockoff and U-turn, and these can also be used on a Choice Band or Choice Scarf set to punish otherwise good switch-ins. The last notable niche that Decidueye can fill is that of a setup sweeper. Decidueye gets access to Swords Dance, Bulk Up, and even Nasty Plot, making use of both its good offenses and defenses. It also gets access to reliable priority, meaning that its speed can be patched up. Similar to Flygon, Decidueye allows for flexible gameplay, punishing the opponent heavily for guessing the incorrect set, making it what I believe one of the most threatening and underrated Pokemon in the whole draft. For my third pick, I used a Pokemon that's a bit more defined in its role, Delphox. Delphox is my premier special attacking threat with access to a great offensive dual stab, deceptively strong special defense, and a good speed tier of 104. Delphox has 2 usable abilities in Blaze, boosting its fire type attacks at low HP, and Magician, allowing Delphox to steal items from opposing Pokemon. Delphox will likely use this ability when coupled with consumable items such as Citrus Berry, Focus Sash, or Eject Pack. Delphox also functions as one of my best fairy resists, as most of the fairies in the tier like Florges and Sylveon and Gardevoir are all special attacking threats whose stab moves hit Delphox for not very effective damage. Delphox also has access to Calm Mind, Agility, and Nasty Plot, taking its sweeping power to new heights. And it also has Encore, Will-O-Wisp, and Dual Screens if needed to perform a more utility-based role, though these will generally be foregone for the sake of raw damage. Despite the more limited role this mon can perform, it will prove invaluable to my team, which desperately was in need of a powerful special attacking threat. My fourth pick was Lantern, a 5-point non-Terra Captain, which deviated from what most coaches used for their fourth pick. While Lantern is a lower point in Pokemon, it provides some niche roles that I did not have access to yet. Lantern is a great slow pivot as it has access to both Flip Turn and Volt Switch, a combination that only Gastrodon and Quagsire are able to deny in the draft pool. It fills the role of a bulky water for cheap, and it provides a water immunity if needed with Water Absorb, and a second electric immunity with Volt Absorb. Lantern also has reliable speed control with Thunder Wave and Discharge, enabling my slower offensive threats such as Decidueye. Lantern's move pool is quite shallow, but the support it does provide greatly enables my harder hitting Pokemon. My fifth pick was my first and only fairy type, Whimsicott. Whimsicott fills a great speed tier of 116, outspeeding the majority of the draft pool, and providing a crucial answer to dragon type moves that my team otherwise lacked. Whimsicott also has the ability Prankster, giving its powerful utility moves priority such as Encore and Stun Spore to name a few. This allows my Whimsicott to serve as a premier disruptor for opposing sweepers, and as another form of speed control to enable my slower Pokemon. It can also help in matchups where a bulkier set is required, while still allowing Whimsicott to deal with quicker threats. While not exceptional, Whimsicott can hit certain Pokemon hard with its rare Fairy Stab and Grass-type moves, along with becoming a surprisingly great physical check to a lot of mons with its unique move, Cotton Guard, raising its defensive stat by a sensational 3 stages. I was okay taking Whimsicott as my second grass type, despite the grass typing usually being a liability. This is because of the limited fairy distribution in the tier, along with Hisuian Decidueye being my Terra Captain, meaning it would almost always shed the typing. Up next, we have my 6th pick, who I was really surprised lasted this long in the draft, Glastrier. Let's get the issues out of the way for this Pokemon. It is very slow, and Mono Ice type is horrible defensively. That being said, this Pokemon, especially in this format with a limited power level, has a few astronomical upsides. Firstly, and by far the most important, it is tied with the second highest base stat total in the format, only being eclipsed by Hoopa. And unlike a lot of Pokemon with high BSTs, Glastrier has them well distributed. Outside of its horrible speed stat, Glastrier has above 100 base stats in its HP, attack, defense, and special defense, allowing it to sponge most hits and return fire, threatening most in the tier. Because of this, Glastrier is one of those Pokemon who will almost always trade 1-for-1 with an opponent, even against a super effective threat. The next few points are a bit more tailored to my team's specific needs, but they still are applicable here. While having a terrible typing in general, Glastrier does provide a much-needed ice resist to the team to support both my grass types and Flygon. Also, Glastrier having a low speed stat deters Trick Room strategies, which in general are not viable in draft, but they seem decent in this format with a lot of slower threats existing, such as Rhyperior and Dragalge. Glastrier also snowballs with its ability Chilling Neigh, giving a +1 attack boost when KOing an enemy. With all this taken into account, I believe that Glastrier will be a staple in my team this season, whether it's its usual role as a bulky nuke or as a niche defensive check due to its high stats. For pick 7, we took Oricorio, who is the complete antithesis of Glastrier in many ways. For its price point, it has lackluster stats with no individual stat being above 100, and has a pretty shallow move pool all things considered. However, it does have merit in a few areas. The first and most obvious is that you get a whole slew of typings from drafting this Pokemon. Not only is it my first flying type of the draft, but since I get all 4 of its forms, it acts as an extra fire, electric, psychic, and most importantly for my team, a ghost type Pokemon, which I have no alternative to. Oricorio has 3 more unique aspects setting it apart from the other flying types in the tier. Firstly, it has access to one of the best setup moves in the tier, Quiver Dance. This allows it to serve as a second special attacking threat to Delphox, leveraging its ability to utilize multiple different stabs, along with its serviceable 93 speed. Secondly, though not always impactful, Oricorio has the ability Dancer, which allows it to copy any dance moves that opposing Pokemon can use. This is a great way to punish certain Dragon Dance and Quiver Dance users by copying their speed boost and potentially KOing the following turn. If you're really banking on copying the likes of Swords Dance, a physical set can be run, but this is much more contingent on accurately predicting a Swords Dance on switch in. Once again, it isn't incredibly useful, but can be a deterrent for some of the more powerful sweepers in the format. Lastly, but certainly not least, this Pokemon gets Defog, allowing me to free up a move slot on the infinitely more powerful Hisuian Decidueye if need be. For pick 8, we have Blissey. This Pokemon I'm on the fence with. It is my first Ghost answer drafted, and a very reliable one at that. As most know, Blissey is arguably the best special attack wall in the whole game, let alone the super low tier format. However, it does come with a few problems. Firstly, it is incredibly passive with a negligible attack stat and a measly 75 base special attack. Many Pokemon can use Blissey as a setup opportunity due to the fact that it's unlikely Blissey can offensively threaten them in the process. However, there are a few less utilized traits of Blissey that can prevent this. Firstly, Blissey can augment its special attack using Calm Mind, which can turn its middling special attack into a legitimate offensive threat if given the turns to do so. Blissey is also yet another Pokemon with Thunder Wave, crippling speed sweepers for the rest of the team to take care of. Alongside its defensive properties, Blissey also has access to Stealth Rocks, being the only other Mon on my team besides Flygon with this move. This is incredibly helpful, as there will be many weeks where I do not wish to run Rocks on Flygon, as this Pokemon already suffers a lot from what's called 4-move syndrome already. Blissey also has a ton of coverage, which is standard from early generation normal types. Once again, it can't be used to maximum effect with its subpar special attack, but it can get the jump on several quad weaknesses if they're not prepared for dealing with it. All in all, I am a bit nervous about the passivity of this Pokemon, but I am hopeful it does get enough tools to overcome potential setup sweepers. Pick 9 is another super undervalued Pokemon in my opinion. I drafted Skuntank at 4 points for this pick. Most notably, this Pokemon has one of the best type combinations in the whole game, only being weak to the ground type defensively. Skuntank is also my first poison and dark type on my team, providing a reliable way to remove toxic spikes and a second ghost answer. Skuntank's stats are a bit subpar, with only its HP being above 100, but it can provide decent attacking pressure and utility. It can set up its own toxic spikes and spread poison with toxic. It also has decent coverage and stab priority with Sucker Punch. Skuntank also has some neat moves with pretty low distribution, being Super Fang and Explosion. The former allows Skuntank to deal reliable damage if run defensively, and the latter allows Skuntank to nuke key pieces in the opponent's team to enable its teammates. Skuntank is also a solid knockoff absorber, while also being able to use knockoff itself. Skuntank can function well without its held item compared to a lot of other Pokemon in the tier, allowing it to switch in on knockoffs to maintain team defensive integrity. Skuntank also has the neat ability Aftermath, allowing it to chip at physical breakers and sweepers alike if they KO it with a contact move. While seemingly insignificant, this coupled with the already decent priority options on my team could be the difference between winning and losing to a fully set up sweeper. I think the value this Pokemon provides at its price point is quite frankly pretty insane, and I'm very excited to see it in action this season. My last pick and last Terra Captain is the 1-point Charjabug. Like every 1-point Pokemon in the tier, it's not very good, but I do believe it is one of the better options, especially for my team. Firstly, it has access to Sticky Webs, which is one of the best forms of speed control in the whole of competitive Pokemon. Secondly, accounting for the fact it can use the Eviolite item, this Pokemon has deceptively good defenses, especially accounting for its ability to Terra if need be. It also has the ability to be a bulky pivot and status spreader as most electric types do, with access to Volt Switch, Discharge, and Thunder Wave. It has a few stat lowering moves such as Lunge and Skitter Smack, but once again, it isn't likely to show up unless webs are absolutely needed for the matchup. And that concludes the breakdown of my draft. What do you guys think? Are you guys excited for the new format? I think it'll be a load of fun. Anywho, take care guys, and I'll see you around. Peace.